Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Super Paranormal Chronicles. Today, I am delighted to have Eric Freeman Sims with me. Eric is a paranormal investigator, a researcher, and an author, and he is also the owner of the historic haunted mansion called the Knight House in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Eric, welcome to the show, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lee.
You are most welcome. So I always try and do a good introduction, and hopefully there's not too many big words that I just kind of fall over, and the podcast goes downhill from then on in.
Yeah, the one that everybody has a problem with is Hopkinsville. Yeah.
Well, I'm originally from England, so I can say Worcestershire with no problem whatsoever. Right. North Americans always have a problem with Worcestershire. Yeah, so I do most of those words I'm pretty good with. So we go. So before we talk about anything else, what I always like to ask my guests is to tell me how it all started. So your first paranormal experiences, how you got involved and how you got interested in the paranormal, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, so I've kind of been haunted my whole life, I like to say. Being an empath kind of runs in my family. And so when I was 8 years old is the first experience that I can remember, like predominant experience. And I was asleep in my bed, and I was a weird kid. I like my door shut and no lights on. Like I like to sleep in the dark. Most kids like the door cracked open or something like that. But always when my door shut, I always felt safer that way. To this day, I sleep with door shut and all that stuff. But I woke up in the middle of the night, sat straight up in the bed, and looked at my door, and the door was wide open, and there was this glowing lady, like this goldish white light, standing in my doorway, full body apparition. And of course, as a 8-year-old, it scared me, so I jumped up, slammed the door, flipped the lights on, and didn't sleep the rest of the night. And didn't really understand it at 8 years old. And so then I got to talking to my mom and my family, and they kind of became more open about their experiences, living at different places. And before I was born, living in a haunted house where an older lady, really, really nice older lady spirit, kind of like a grandmotherly spirit, would watch over the kids and kind of take care of them. And so it just kind of snowballed from there. Fast forward to when I was 14, my father passed away when I was 14. My summer between middle school and high school. So going from 8th to 9th grade. And kind of a pivotal moment in life, because that's when you're kind of going from a kid to a teenager. You're going through all of the hormones and all that stuff. And my dad just suddenly passes away in his sleep. And I wasn't particularly raised religious. My mom was religious because she was raised by a Southern Baptist preacher. But she didn't go to church, and I was never made to go to church. And my dad was agnostic. So he believed in something beyond us. He just wouldn't prescribe to any religion. And so they let me make up my own mind about religion. And I kind of took on more of my dad's stance of being agnostic, of making my own mind up and kind of trying out religions and things. And then when he died, it just kind of threw me into, okay, I had the need now to go out and prove that he didn't just cease to exist. So, and this is before the TV shows. I didn't even really know that people went out and did this as a hobby back then. This is in 1997. So for reference, Ghost Hunters didn't come out until like 2003, 2004. But me and I had some other of my weird friends who I convinced to go with me to some cemeteries. And we just had a basic actual tape voice recorder and pretty much just went out there to see what we could experience. And then there was a place about 20 minutes from me that's an old plantation that is open for historical tours and things like that. That as a high schooler where I live, it just kind of, you snuck in there, mostly as a dare to scare each other. But we went in there seriously trying to see or experience something. And for me, it was to, like I said, to prove to myself that there was something beyond us. And because I'm a very analytical, kind of scientific minded person, I'm a see to believe type person. And I've been kind of chasing that ever since. But what really kicked me into it, was when my dad died and trying to, and we had some experiences at my house, me and my mom after he died. It was just me and her. And he made himself known. I mean, he would turn the TV on and off, and we'd hear tools in our garage kind of clanking around because it was his garage. It was his tools. We'd see shadows and things, and it was always comforting to know that it was him. He never did anything to scare us or anything like that. But that kind of threw me into more of the research and going out and investigating different places and finding places to investigate, like going to different cemeteries and stuff. And, we never vandalized anything or anything like that. And I don't condone trespassing, but at the time it wasn't a big deal either. And then once the internet started coming around in high school, you kind of get the more resources, to find other people's stories and kind of figure out, well, I'm not crazy for being an empath, and I'm not crazy for believing in all this ghost stuff and life beyond us outside of Christianity, because I was raised in the Bible Belt of Tennessee, and so constantly surrounded by religion, the Church of Christ and the Baptists, Southern Baptists, and they hate each other and they're always fighting. But everybody went to church, except for me. The majority of my friends went to church every Wednesday, every Sunday, and so I was kind of a weird kid in that way too. But I was also the weird kid that went to the book fair at school looking for Bigfoot, alien books, supernatural stuff. I watched Unsolved Mysteries strictly for like the ghost stuff, when they have a ghost or Bigfoot or cryptid or something like that on there. But yeah, that's how I got into it. And it's just grown and grown and grown as I gotten older.
Yeah. Did you ever do any research or look into who this ghostly woman was?
I've talked to some people because my parents rented that house, or this house. They bought this house when it was brand new, and I inherited my parents' house. My mother passed away in 2009, so I still live here, and we still have things happen. I've never seen that woman ever again. The only thing that I've learned to maybe attribute that to is the empathic part of me and my family, because my mom was a really strong empath as well. And so I always like to say we're like a lighthouse in the dark for spirits. Now, I'm not a medium. I don't talk to spirits at all. I'm good with energy. I can feel when they're around. Sometimes they show themselves in different forms to me. But as far as like straight talking to them like a psychic medium, no, it doesn't happen. It's never happened to me. And so I think she was just somebody that recognized that I could see her or sense her, that she was there, and just wanted maybe the acknowledgement of it. Like I said, nothing with her ever happened again. Never seen her ever again. But also, I think maybe it could have been a spirit guide of mine that, as a kid getting older and learning about these abilities in my family, and they're kind of emerging in myself too, maybe saying, hey, you do have these abilities, you're not crazy, type of stuff as well. So it's interesting. Like I said, I've learned that we're like a lighthouse in the dark because we have transient spirits that come through my house all the time that are just passing through, and so things will happen for 6 months, weekly, and then we'll have 3 or 4 months where nothing happens. So
interesting. And I always get jealous of people like yourself, because when I was younger, I never experienced anything. You get all the people like yourself coming on and go, oh yeah, when I was 8, this happened. When I was 14, it's like, damn it, just stop saying that, because I'm jealous of this thing. So obviously it was comforting to know that your dad was still with you, because you could hear that he was tinkering in the garage and stuff like that. But when your mother passed in 2009, I think he said, have you actually felt your mother being in a house as well, or have you seen or heard or?
I have like actually. Every once in a while I'll smell her perfume, and she wore a really distinctive perfume that now is kind of like an old lady perfume, but it's called Jovan Musk, and she always wore it. And we've completely remodeled the house. So for anybody to say maybe it's stuck in the walls or whatever, we've completely remodeled our house. So it's all brand new. I mean, I'm talking down to the studs. It's all brand new drywall. There's nothing in here that smell would have stuck in. You know what I'm saying? So for me to just be walking through the house and catch a whiff of that distinctive perfume, it just, I don't have any other explanation for it. Also, during her celebration of life, she didn't have a funeral. She planned her own services before she passed away, like a few years before she passed away. And she did not want to be in a casket where people come and view her body or whatever. So she was cremated before we ever had a service. That was her wishes. And so then we had a celebration of life. Well, me and my mom liked the same music, and I knew what she wanted. I played at her funeral. So I made a CD. I burned a CD right before we went. I'm talking 10 minutes before we went to the funeral home. And I played it in the car, make sure there's nothing wrong with it, and I give it to the funeral director, and they put it in their CD player. And the very first 10 seconds of the first song, it skips. And every song after that skipped. And one of my friends leaned over, because we're all laughing at this point, right? Everybody's sad, but then this CD skipping, and one of my friends leans over and said, "You're about your mom messing with you, right?" I said, "Oh, I know. I completely know." So it just kind of completely changed the mood of like she was making her presence known to everybody that she was there. And so things like that. I've had very lucid dreams about her too, where she's come to my dreams and where you're dreaming. And I've had conversations with her about that she's okay. And then when one of my aunts passed away, I had a lucid dream of my mom, and then she told me, "Your aunt is okay." And then my aunt kind of appeared from like behind a tree, as like in a park setting. So yeah, she's definitely come to me, and we had those conversations too, because for a long time it was just me and her. And we have those conversations as well of, if something happened to her, that she would come back and let me know that her and my dad were okay. And, and so, yeah, every once in a while, I think especially when I kind of need it, because I'm 42. And so for both my parents to be gone is rough at times. It still is. You never get over it. You just learn to deal a little bit. And so, especially around the holidays, I think sometimes when I really need it's when she kind of pops up and lets me know that she's still around.
And it's interesting that even your friends acknowledge the fact that she was messing with you with the CD. It's sort of like, I'm still here and I'm gonna screw you today.
Yeah.
Okay, so after the age of 14 and you're getting towards adulthood, how did your life then transgress into I want to be a researcher, I want to be an investigator, and how did that kind of plan out for you?
So I throughout high school, like I said, we went and investigated different places and had different experiences at different places, different cemeteries, and especially the plantation I was talking about had a few really amazing experiences there. But when I was 18, I became a nurse tech, and it's a nurse's aide. I was allowed to do a little more than like a nurse's aide, but I went to work at a nursing home just 20 minutes down the road. And I worked the night shift Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. And I worked on the Alzheimer's lockdown unit. And what that means for anybody that don't know is that all the patients had Alzheimer's, and you had to put a code in to get in and out of the doors. So that way none of them could wander off, right? Because they all had memory issues and things. And so our job was to basically go around every 2 hours and check for the incontinent patients that need their diapers changed and things like that, and give them baths early in the morning and get them ready for the day. So we walked around in the dark a lot. And this wing of this nursing home was built in the 1940s and had always been a nursing home. And then they come in and built in the 80s a modern building on top onto it. And so there's no telling how many people had been in that nursing home when it was just that wing from the 40s up until 2001 when I started working there, who had passed away there to begin with. And it was definitely haunted. And I didn't, because back then people still didn't, it still wasn't popular in pop culture, like it is today with we're doing podcasts and TV shows. And so I didn't say anything to the two nurses I worked with. I had a partner, I had another nurse tech partner that I worked with, and then we had a nurse. And it was just the three of us on that entire hallway. And we were separated from the rest of the building by a huge dining room and physical therapy. So we're a good way away from anybody else in the building. And so I just kind of like, you just dealt with it until one night, the nurse and my partner were going to lunch about 3:00 in the morning. So I was the only person on the hall. And if you picture like a hospital in a horror movie, the only light on, it's like a T. Like, so you have one that come into a T, and right in this corner was the nurse's station. And that's the only light on both hallways. And then at the very end of the long hallway, there was if you got those doors, you go to the employee parking lot. So there were street lights out there shining in. That's the only light. But your eyes get accustomed to it going in the patient's rooms when it's dark. You don't want to wake them up because some of them are difficult because they're so far gone with Alzheimer's, things like that. Also, you don't want to wake them up because some of them are fall risks. They try to get out of bed, whatever. So I was on the hall by myself, and I am going to do a round and check on the patients. So I walk up to that T in the hallway and I look down to the left, and there is a gentleman about 6'5", skinny, younger guy in a black suit, all black suit, standing at the end of the hallway facing me. He's at the very last set of rooms. There's a room on each side. And he looks at me, and I look at him, and he smiles, but it's not a creepy smile. It doesn't make me creeped out. And he turns and goes to the room to his left, the room to my right. And so I'm like, it's 3:00 in the morning. Like, there's no visitors. Like, who's this guy that's wandering around the halls? You know, and I didn't think it was one of the patients because this was a young guy. So I go down there and I walk in the room and flip the light on. There's nobody there. It's just the 4 women who are in that room. There's 2 beds on each side. And that experience made me ask the nurses, all right, what is really going on? Like, I've had these experiences where I've heard footsteps. I've walked into rooms and seen what looked like people sitting in wheelchairs, and then you turn the light on, there's nobody sitting in the wheelchair. Things like that, where you think patients are up because you see what looks like somebody pop out the doorway. So I started talking about all these things, and they just kind of shrug it off. They're just like, yeah, it just happens. Because they both worked there for 20 years. And they're both like, oh, yeah, just something happens around here. And they're like, we didn't want to tell you because we didn't want to scare you off because we like you, And after that, they were very open with me about the experiences and stuff. But that, and one of the ladies in that room actually died the next morning. And so I always call that, the only thing I could think of is the angel of death. Like, this guy came to ferry her to the next, Anubis, the angel of death, what do you even call it? Ferry her to the next life, to the next realm. And so I always call that guy the angel of death. But it wasn't scary. It wasn't anything that scared. It scared me once I went down there and saw nobody was there, because I'm like, what the hell's going on?
That would make perfect sense for it to be somebody who's going to assist her with moving on to the afterlife. That would make perfect sense.
Also, working in the nursing home, you get hospice patients and things, people who are dying, that talk about people that are in the room that you can't see. I mean, the majority of people who are still somewhat with it, who are in that process with cancer or whatever, a lot of them talk about people that you can't see. And so you just go along with them, You never try to tell them, it's not real or anything, because to them it is.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It may be real, we just can't see it.
Exactly. So, like I said, when we was offline, I've been doing a little bit of research into who you are, what you've done, and this kind of stuff. So, being in Tennessee, for those people that know and those people that love music, have you ever been to Graceland and experienced anything there? Because people do say that Elvis's ghost walks, it is frequently seen at Graceland. Have you actually visited and experienced anything?
I have been to Graceland during the day and not really experienced anything, just more as a tourist. I mean, but not really experienced anything there. Most of the places like that, for one, they don't talk about it if it is going on. I mean, you hear stories like you're saying from some of the famous places around Tennessee, like Graceland, or in Nashville, you have like the Ryman Auditorium, which is the mother church of country music, which is notoriously haunted. And you can take haunted tours downtown now where they'll walk you around and tell you all the different ghost stories. But I've never experienced anything in a place like that, like a famous place like that. There's a lot of historical places around here that allow investigating that I've experienced a lot, but especially because we have such a huge Civil War history. In Middle Tennessee, Nashville was a really important place for the North and the South because of the railroad. There's a huge railroad convergence, so you have a lot of battles around here. And then 20 minutes down the street from me is a town called Franklin, Tennessee, and they call it the 5 bloodiest hours of the Civil War. Because more men died in 5 hours than died in a lot of the battles that happened. But that was kind of right on. They call it 5 bloodiest hours too, because it's kind of right on pace with, or would have if the battle lasted longer, would have outpaced like even Gettysburg or Shiloh, where tens of thousands of people died. But I think there was like something like 7,500 soldiers died in 5 hours in Franklin, Tennessee. And so that ground is just bloody, and so the whole town is haunted because it happened in the middle of downtown. And so I've experienced lots of things in a couple of places over there. I mean, people experience things there, even when they don't know it. They'll think that, okay, well, that's a reenactor. Well, that wasn't a reenactor. The reenactor is only in town in November, which is the anniversary of the Battle of Franklin. You don't get a lot of reenactors just walking around in July, but people will see soldiers, full body apparitions of soldiers in the middle of the day and think it's a reenactor, and then they'll find out that, no, we don't have any reenactors in town that we know of. Things like that.
Yeah, I spoke to some guys that were from Gettysburg, and they basically just said exactly the same as what you just did with regard to the reenactors. Yeah. It's sort of like, oh, that was a reenactor. No, No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what came first for you? Was it the fact that you decided to do a podcast, or was it the fact that you decided to write your first book?
So I started the podcast in 2020, and that kind of snowballed everything else over the past 5 years. I never always thought about writing a book, like growing up, like, there's something I would like to be a published author. I've always been a voracious reader. I read many, many books a year, whether it be paranormal or Stephen King, horror, or, whatever. And so when I started the podcast, I started with the intention of talking to all these other authors on different subjects, from ghosts to cryptids. And especially because I'm a ghost guy and I've done it for, since I was a teenager, for over 20 years. I mean, even going into the podcast, I had almost 20 years under my belt as a researcher and stuff. But my focus has been ghost. And other than watching things on TV or YouTube or whatever about Bigfoot and cryptids, I really didn't know anything about that stuff, or aliens or dogmen or any of the other, topics in the paranormal umbrella. So I started the podcast with the goal of educating myself through talking to people who I thought were interesting, whether they're authors, they're on TV, whatever. And hopefully people would have the same interest as me and the curiosity to listen to the show. And so the more the authors I talked to, I became friends with a lot of them, like Sin Schrader Hill, who I met her through the podcast. And, she's a prolific author. She's working on like her 7th or 8th book now. And so she kind of pushed me like, you should write a book. And then my buddy Steve Stockton, who's a big paranormal author about the missing person and mystery stuff, the national parks and all that, he pushed me. He's like, you're very well spoken. You'd be a good author. And I'm like, really? And so I thought I wanted to come up with something that kind of wasn't done in the way that I put it together. And so I decided a couple of years ago that I'd write Small Town Haunts and Legends of Tennessee. And I wanted to write it to where it could be a series of, if I want to go to a different state, it could be Small Town Haunts and Legends of Kentucky, things like that. So it took me 2 years to write the first book because I didn't know what I was doing. And I kept going back and editing myself and rewriting. And I wrote Small Town Haunts and Legends of Tennessee. And the point of it was to find locations that had an interesting unknown history that's not taught in history class, or you can't really find readily available on the internet or in history books. Places that were haunted, but had this history to back it up. Because for me, I think, especially with ghosts, 80% of what we do is history. The other 20% is the paranormal part of it, of connecting to that history. But it's still all about the history and connecting to those people. And so I thought, if I'd write 80% history and then tell you the ghost stories that go along with it, then you understand why a place is haunted. So I could tell you the ghost stories. Well, that's entertaining. But if I teach you something about history that you never would have known, it's even better. And so trying to find these places that aren't well known, that have never been on TV, but have these fascinating stories from history and these fascinating paranormal stories. And so it's fun to write because I love researching. And when I say I'm a researcher, I'm not joking. Like, I really dive into all the stuff and read books. And like you commented on my library, those are all paranormal books. There's all reference books or paranormal books. There's reference books on Native American culture and things like that, because I want to understand where their beliefs come from. I have books from Rosemary Ellen Guiley that are reference books for different cryptids and things. And books like that, I collect them and I actually read them. They're not just sitting on the shelf. And so I really dove into the research and had fun doing that, and then writing to tell other people about it. So that book is definitely like a reference book where you can go look at this town in Tennessee. There are these places that are haunted. Now, they may or may not allow you in to investigate, but this is the history and the hauntings of these places that you've probably never heard of, that are to me, they're fascinating.
So did you actually manage to visit all the locations that you wrote about?
I did not. A lot of them, like I said, a lot of them are private residences. I've visited many, many of them. I did not put my own kind of opinion or conjecture in to them. It just added to my knowledge of the paranormal stories and the history of what I was writing about, because I'd been there before. But I'd say probably 30 or 40 of the locations I've been to, whether on just a history tour or investigating them. There's quite a few in there that I've actually investigated and have a good relationship. Most of them I've been to several times and investigated.
And do you have any favorites in the book?
My favorite will always be Carton Plantation, which is a plantation that I started when we used to sneak into when I was a kid. They don't want anything to do with the paranormal. their last I heard, their tour guides were instructed that if they told any paranormal ghost stories, that they'd be fired. Yeah, the director, who is the director over that and several other locations, they're all owned by a nonprofit to save the history of the Battle of Franklin things. He does not. He's a historian and he cares nothing about the paranormal, and he doesn't want to hear about it. Doesn't want to anybody investigating. I mean, even around Halloween, they don't even do like lantern tours. You know, they're strictly history. But that place, the history to me has always amazed me since I was a kid, and because even when I was before I started sneaking in there looking for ghosts, I mean, we would go there on field trips. So, you know, in school we would go there to learn the history and tour the house, and the place, for one, is amazing, has an amazing story. The family, the McGavics that built it, were an amazing family too. But I was always fascinated because there are these giant blood stains still in the hardwood floors, specifically in an upstairs bedroom where they did all of the amputations and all the surgeries from the wounded soldiers. There were so many of them that one of the soldiers' diaries said that the limbs stacked from the ground to the second floor window where they were throwing out the window. Yeah, and there are these, and when I say blood stains, I'm talking massive blood stains that still are just soaked into these hardwood floors. And so I think that gives it more of a human connection. It's not just a 2D history. I think that's people's real blood there, you know. And I think working in medicine for 20-something years, also I have that connection, you know, working in emergency medicine, and blood is kind of the lifeline, you know, too. But I would say probably Carton Plantation. I wish I could go in there and actually do an official investigation. The other place that I've actually investigated many, many times that allows investigations is a place called the Thomas House in Red Bowling Springs, Tennessee. And it is still a bed and breakfast. And when you go, the owners are amazing. When you go there, they feed you dinner, and then you do your ghost hunt all night, and then they feed you breakfast the next morning. And you get your own room and things. And the place is extremely haunted. I've had so many experiences there. But it was a hotel for a healing mineral spring back in the 1920s. Excuse me. So people would come there with cancer or whatever horrible disease they had, thinking they were going to get healed. Well, they didn't get healed because it was just spring water. And so they died. Many, many people died there. And but just a fascinating history there, and just an amazing owners, and just the whole atmosphere. But that would be the place that I've actually investigated officially, would be the Thomas House.
Right. And it's weird how when you go to the US, there are so many different locations that you are allowed to investigate.
Yeah.
Where once you come north of the border, there's so many city-owned properties. Yeah, some of them are hotels or whatever, and it's sort of like, nope, you can't go and investigate here. We're not interested. And it kind of sucks, because you get the reports that, yes, this room or this building is haunted, but you can't go anywhere near it. So it's kind of disappointing. So, like, a lot of people that are investigators this side of the border frequently go to the US because the locations are more readily available.
I just recently met a Canadian who came down to do an investigation with us. His name's Adrian from Wolfpack Paranormal. And,
yes. I know.
You know Adrian?
Yeah.
Great guy. But he came all the way to Tennessee. And sorry, I got a tickle in my throat.
That's okay.
But yeah, he came all the way to Tennessee for a weekend to hang out, to do an event with us. And so it was very cool to talk to him. But he was talking similarly. And then also, there's not a lot of investigators up north of the border, no matter where you're at in Canada. Because I hate to do the stereotype of like, well, you must know everybody must know each other. But he was telling me, no, we all do know each other, because there's not many of us that do this all the time or have groups or whatever. And so I found that fascinating. But yeah, Adrian's a great guy. Yeah,
he is. And one thing that he's very good at, he likes to get different groups to connect with each other.
Yeah.
And every day on Facebook, you'll go, oh, this group started, they haven't got many followers. Can you just like them and all that kind of stuff? And he's really good at doing that. Absolutely fantastic. That's one, for kudos. So, you've already mentioned the fact that you wrote Small Town Haunts and Legends of Tennessee.
Yeah.
But let's now speak about the Unseen Paranormal Podcast. How did that come about? I know you mentioned, we kind of touched on it earlier, but can we go into a little bit more detail?
Yeah, it was kind of seamless, really. In around 2018, I reconnected with a high school friend who I hadn't seen in a long, long time. Her name's Melissa. And she had started a podcast with one of her friends that had nothing to do with paranormal. It's called My BFF Podcast. And she invited me to be a guest on the show. And I had listened to podcasts for quite a few years, but never been asked to be a guest. And so I went on there. And like I said, it had nothing to do with the paranormal. It was just about life and friendship and, mental health and things like that. So we had a good time. And then she had some technical questions because I've done sound for a long, long time. I was also trained to do live sound audio engineering for live bands. And so she had some audio issues at one time that she had me help her fix. And then she asked me to produce the podcast. And so be a behind the scenes producer. So I started producing the podcast. It became pretty popular. It was on New and Noteworthy on Apple Podcast and was on in the top 50 podcasts on Apple for a while. And so I helped her with that for a couple of years until 2020. And her and her co-host decided to part ways. And she did the podcast by herself for a little while. And then they decided to end it. And when she did that, I was like, well, maybe I should start my own, but talk about something I know about, like the paranormal. And something that interests me, even with it being a small niche, it was more about doing it for myself and enjoying the guests that I talked to than it was about anybody ever listening. And especially, I didn't realize it would grow into what it did grow into over 5 years. But so yeah, that's kind of how I got rolling, because I'd learned kind of behind the scenes over like a year and a half of how the podcast world worked and how to the production aspect of it, of putting one together, but also the ins and outs of podcast hosting and all those things. And so that's also why I always kept mine, for the most part, it has always been audio. The video stuff has just come about kind of in the past couple of years where Facebook did live and just made it easier to do the video stuff. But I've always stuck with the audio, kind of the old homage to like the old radio talk shows that are kind of disappearing slowly. And I just decided this year to kind of end it after 5 years and 170 episodes, 170 guests. I've got a lot of other stuff going on. And, but the podcast has allowed all of that to happen. So ultimately, me and you were talking because of the podcast and what it's allowed me to do the 5 years that I did it, to not only open doors for me to do things, but also for me to be on TV shows, magazine covers, to up my profile in the paranormal, and ultimately for me to buy the Knight House and own my own location. So yeah, I have all of it to thank for a second. I'm very, very blessed to do the paranormal for a living. I really am. I understand that's a dream of a lot of people. I'm very blessed to do that, being a location owner for sure. And the podcast did really, really well with advertisers and things like that. But yeah, it's time to move on from the podcast. But I will leave it out there for people to listen to and go back. There's some great guests on there. I had some great conversations with people. But yeah, I owe all this to the Unseen Paranormal Podcast.
Yeah, and I can so relate to what you've just said, because I started this podcast in February of this year. Yeah, and I think I'm now at episode 46.
Yeah.
I decided that I was going to start doing it bi-weekly, but then I just reached out to so many people, and then I had so many guests. I'm thinking, I'm going to have to do this weekly. And that was a big decision for me, because it's like, okay, I've got a lot of guests now, but if we go to weekly, how's it going to pan out?
Right.
And then it went absolutely mental. And in July, I'd got so many pre-recorded episodes. I did 2 a week because I've got and it was like, it's absolutely crazy. But it's right what you say about it opening doors, because like I say, we have a joint friend with Sin, and she literally dropped 15 names to me after our first episode. I've had her on twice. And it's like, oh, reach out to this person, reach out to Eric, reach out to this. And there's like so many people. And it's funny how that we've got like other people in common, like Tommy Cullen, for example, in the UK. Yeah, he's also a joint friend. Yeah. But since I started doing this, I'm doing my second webinar on the 18th of December. I've got a thing in January where it's like a 48-hour paranormal thing, and everybody talks for an hour. I've got involved with that. and we've been on a couple of radio stations and stuff like, and it's opened so many doors.
Yeah.
And I'm only in the infant stages of this podcast, but I've had some crazy people on it, and some really interesting conversations have been had. So I'm going to ask you the same question as what I asked you about your book. Are there any particular episodes in the Unseen Paranormal podcast that really stand out? And if you get asked this question, these stories are the ones that tend to come to the forefront.
One of the biggest that stands out is Andrea Perron. I had the privilege I did a 2-part episode with her. And for people, if they don't recognize her name, her family was in the Conjuring House family. In the Conjuring House movie, the original one, they used the Perron's name, and Andrea was actually a consultant on the film. But to hear that story from her that I've heard for so long throughout my life, of being one of the, old crazy paranormal cases, and I actually get to talk to her, who's a spokesperson for her family. She's written a 3-volume book series on it. And to talk to her and hear the story from her mouth, but also talk to her about the movie and what she thought about the movie, and how accurate the movie was and things like that. But we just had a great conversation for like 2.5 hours. And she was just the sweetest lady. And in turn, I went on her paranormal show, Spiritual Awakening, when she was doing it. She invited me on her show, which blew me away. I'm sitting here, I'm friends with Andrea Perron. Like, like, it's crazy. That episode really, really loved. There's an episode I did not get to ever put out that I so wish I could have, but I had audio issues with it so bad that it just couldn't be saved. But I talked to Dr. Raymond Moody for 2.5 hours as well. Dr. Raymond Moody, he coined the term near-death experience in the 70s. He has a PhD in psychology and sociology. He has seriously studied near-death experiences and past life regressions and all these other things. And sorry about that. And so to talk to him and pick his brain from a scientific standpoint, and how when he first started researching that back in the 70s and wrote his first book about near-death experiences up until now, and how his thoughts have changed from when he first started doing it as a scientist and a researcher. Just a fascinating man. And he's in his 80s. And so the fact that he said yes for me to talk to him was just a complete honor. And like I said, I wish the audio would have been good. It was just those technical issues that you have. But to talk to him and pick his brain when, he's in his 80s, he's not going to be around a whole lot longer. And he just put out a new book too. But yeah, incredible, incredible man. And such a wealth of knowledge when you talking about near-death experiences and life after death and things that people seen. And he's interviewed like thousands of witnesses who have had near-death experiences and things. So just an incredible conversation with him. But to get to talk about icons like that I've seen on TV shows, In Search Of back in the day, and Unsolved Mysteries, and he's the go-to guy for that topic. Just kind of blows my mind.
Yeah, and again, I can so relate to what you just say, because I'm involved with the Comic Con world, and I can walk past so many different guests and just go hi and not give them a second thought. But then if I get somebody who's quite high profile in the paranormal world or in the UFO world, I'm like, oh my God. And you start fanboying kind of thing, because it's, this is your main interest. So you're having people that you want to speak to. So, all these celebrities that have been on movies is like, hi, okay, whatever. But when you get somebody that you really want to meet, it's completely different.
Yeah, and for me, it's not, I don't care if you've been on TV. Don't care. I've been on TV. I've been in a couple episodes of the show. Don't care. I've been on magazine. Don't care. Because famous people are exactly the same as we are. Big deal. Like Jason Hawes and all the ghost hunters, I respect them. But, okay, you're on TV. You still have a life. You still have kids. You still have a daily, But it's people like Andrea Perron, who really went through all that crazy stuff with the Conjuring House. Dr. Raymond Moody, who has researched this stuff for 50 years as a serious researcher and has brought credibility to what we do as one of the first scientists to ever take any paranormal subject seriously and got laughed at for it. To talk to those people, that's what excites me. That's what I fan out about, like you're talking about. The celebrities, whatever. I want to talk to the people that are the experts. The people that we
Exactly.
really can call the experts, like Dr. Raymond Moody, like Andrew Perrin, who went through it. Not saying there's any experts in paranormal per se, because I've been doing it for over 25 years, but I'm not an expert. I mean, I don't know everything. We have no answers, you know. But to talk to people who are so experienced and that, yeah, those are the people that I just have mad respect for and just so excited to talk to.
Yeah, I always tell people that in this line of work, if you want to call it that, we don't have experts. We just have people that have got a lot of experience.
Yeah.
And it's completely different. So, moving on, you decided to buy the Knight House in Hopkinsville. How did that come about?
It's interesting. I was having a conversation on the phone with another investigator friend of mine. And me and him were talking about how fun it would be to own your own location. Well, everybody knows how your phone listens to you, Facebook listens to you. So I started getting these pop-ups for join this group, old houses, $100,000 and beyond. So I got to looking on there and I'm like, man, does nobody wants to own these houses anymore? Like the younger generation, they don't want to fix them up. And I saw how cheap they were, as opposed to like new houses, and especially the history of some of these places. And the fact that I love history so much that if I could save a part of it, would just be awesome. And the journey of renovating it, rehabbing it, restoring it, that whole journey, I found fascinating too. So I started looking and I found a couple, and I mean, this is just a crazy out there idea that I had. I had no idea. I didn't formulate a plan to pay for it or nothing like that. But I went and talked to my husband about it, and we've been together for 20 years. And so I went to him and I said, look how cheap these older houses are. And he got into the idea. And so in the beginning of 2024, we started looking at some, and we had a criteria. It had to be a certain distance, driving distance from where we live, because we're not moving anywhere. And it had to be within 2 hours driving distance. And I told him, I said, if the house already has a name, there's a history there. So if they've already named the house, like the Knight House after the Knight family, then I know there's a history there that will be fascinating. And so we just happened to come across the Knight House on that website. And they wanted $115,000 for the house and 3 acres, but it had to be cash. It didn't have a kitchen, so no mortgage company would touch it. There are a lot of things that had to be done before it could be even insured. So we talked them down quite a lot. Actually, it was they were asking 150. We talked them down to 115. And through negotiation and tactics that we used to ignore them, and until they actually dropped their own price from 145 to 125, and then we countered with 115 and they took it. So it just kind of happened really quickly. We started looking at houses in February of 2024, and we bought the Knight House in April 2024. And so the first time we went and looked at it, for one, we had to sign a waiver saying that if we got hurt, it wasn't their fault or their problem. And so I was like, well, that's interesting. The realtor wouldn't even go in the house because she was under the impression the floors and shit were falling in. But that wasn't the case at all. It really wasn't the case at all. So she wouldn't go in the house. But so yeah, we ended up getting it for a price that we were comfortable with, that we could afford. And that was our nest egg, our savings. And so the Knight House is the retirement plan. Not that we're ever going to get rich off of it or anything like that, doing paranormal investigations and history tours. But it's done well. It pays its own bills, and we put all the money right back into restoring it and fixing it. But from the moment that we left there after looking at it for the first time, me and my husband both found each other talking like we already owned it. So just naturally, we talked like, oh, we're going to do this, this, and this first. We got to do this to get insurance on it. We got to do the, type of deal. And we were just, I don't know, in both of our heads, we were convinced we already owned the place. And so I think it was somewhat meant to be spiritually. And I think maybe the spirits kind of nudged it along. They wanted us to be the owners. And so we bought it, and it's kind of been a crazy almost 2 years now. It's April of next year will be 2 years, so year and a half. But it's been awesome at the same time.
Yeah, how many stories did you know about the Knight House before you bought it with regard to the paranormal?
Yeah, not many. There really wasn't any information online about it. Now I've built it up to where if you Google the Knight House, it's on the first 3 or 4 pages of Google and other search engines. But there wasn't much out there about it. I called the county historian and talked to him about the Knights and the other families that lived there. And it's been a residence for 210 years. It was built in 1815. It's the oldest house still standing in the entire county. One of the oldest still standing in Kentucky, period. So I knew that there was a history there. And you just kind of got a feeling when you went in there that you're kind of being watched. Not anything eerie, and they don't make you feel weird. It's a very comfortable feeling. But it was a residence for 200 years. The Knights lived there for 85. And pretty much their entire family died there and had their wakes there, in the dining room. And so you just kind of got a sense that there were still people there. And the people loved the house so much. There was never any murders, no suicide, no crazy tragedy. It was just people living their lives, and they loved this house. And that's why they stayed there for so long, because they absolutely loved it. And so I told Roger from the get-go, my husband, I told him from the get-go, I said, if there's not much activity, there's not much activity. It's a historic house. I want to run off the merits of it's a historic house, and we're saving and preserving the history. Now we do that through renting it out for paranormal investigation. And we've gotten very lucky that the spirits that we have are wonderful. They love talking to people. They love hosting people in the house. I don't force them to do anything. And I've even told them that when they're ready to cross over, to go. I'm not asking you to perform like a circus act, but these people want to come in and talk to you. They want to talk to you about your house. They're coming in and enjoy your house and the beautiful house that you created and that we've just got to be the custodians of. And I've said from the get-go that the history of that house is not mine. It belongs to Hopkinsville. We just have to be good stewards of it. And most people never knew the history of that house. And at least 4 of the owners were big in creating Hopkinsville and making Hopkinsville what it is today. It's not a huge town. It's a town about 50,000 people. But these are people that brought the railroad through and did other things in town that made the town what it is. And so just getting that history out there. Also, one of the biggest things that we heard buying the house from people when we put it on social media and people in the community found out, they're like, I've driven past that house my entire life and always wanted to see inside. Well, until we opened it to the public, to history tours and the paranormal, they didn't have that opportunity. And so now we give people opportunity to come and enjoy that history. And hopefully, I think we're snowballing into possibly getting maybe the schools to come do field trips, and do history tours and things like that. And I would love that. It would be wonderful. I just love sharing the house with people in the history. And people have been so responsive and love it. We're going on a year and a half, and we have 2 different teams that have already booked their 3rd night to come and stay at the house and investigate. That's how much they love the house. So
one thing that you said that you've now got it on the top 3 or 4 pages of Google. Yeah. So I did my due diligence and I did Google the Knight House, and I know that you've experienced quite a few things in some of the investigations. Yeah. So can you talk to us about some of those, please?
So we experience stuff all the time when we're just there working on the house. I started pretty much day one. The first day that we got the keys, once we signed all the paperwork, got the keys, went to the house, I was actually in the restroom, using the restroom, and somebody knocked on the door. And I said, I'll be out in a minute, because I thought it was my husband or his parents or his aunt that was with us. And when I come out, they're completely on the entire other side of the house. And they didn't knock on the door. So it started the moment 10 minutes after he walked in the house. And then a couple of days later, Roger thought that he locked me and my brother in the kitchen. And because somebody knocked on the door from the kitchen into the dining room, he was closing it and latching it for the night. And this is why we're still renovating. So we're locking things up pretty tight. But then he opened the door. There's nobody there. And he could see me and my brother out the window in the yard. and there's nobody else there. So it's just been things from that. Like my in-laws, my mother and father-in-law have really been instrumental in helping us work on the place because we do all the work ourselves. My father-in-law has been a contractor for 50 years, so he can do anything construction-wise. So they've been great. And he's even talked about being in the cellar and hearing conversations in the parlor of people talking, or it sounded like they're arguing. And he's come out and said, we're all outside. And he's like, what are y'all arguing about? And I'm like, we ain't been in the house. We've been outside, mowing or whatever. And he's heard these people arguing. So it started from the get-go. And then with teams coming in, it's just kind of snowballed even more and more. And that makes me happy because it seems like I said, the spirits are happy to talk to the people. As long as you're respectful and you come in with good energy, they tend to respond pretty well. And the teams get, we've had some incredible EVPs. We did a couple of months ago, I was leading a group during a public ghost hunt, and we're down in the basement, and we believe we have a 15-year-old kid down there named Jack from all the investigations and the things that we've caught. And also through a psychic medium friend of mine named and Sims, Mark Elliott Foltz. And he likes marbles. So I was asking him, do you want me to we have this bag of marbles on the pool table. And I said, do you want me to get the marbles out? And he says, no, really loud. It's one of the loudest EVPs ever caught. Other people have caught various other EVPs. We had a team a very experienced team. They've been a team since I think 2008, and 4 guys, and 2 of them were upstairs in the parlor. The house is 6 levels. So, I mean, when I say mansion, it's huge. It's 5,600 square feet, 6 levels, massive place. And so 2 of the guys were upstairs investigating. The other 2 were in the kitchen, and the kitchen's a modern kitchen. So that's kind of the base station for teams where they hang out, set up equipment, DVR systems, whatever they're doing. The other 2 guys were in the kitchen going over some EVP stuff on a laptop. So they shut the door that goes from the kitchen into the dining room. When they try to get out of the kitchen, we have an old baby carriage that had moved itself in front of the door and wedged itself between the door and the buffet. And they thought the guys were playing, the other 2 guys playing a prank on them. And so they walkie-talkie them. They come and let them out. And those guys swear up and down that they did not move that baby carriage. And so they had the house until 3 a.m. So I come in there about 2:45 as they were packing up. And I was like, how'd everything go? And the first thing he said was, you ever had the baby carriage move on its own? Not that I know of. So, and also the kid in the basement, one of my friend's teams, Night Paranormal, Barbie, Buffy, they're awesome. Their team's great. They had told the kid in the basement, the cat balls that we have that light up, they said that big marble over there that lights up, you can have it. Well, when they went to collect their cat balls in the basement, there was one missing. And so they're like, well, we guess he took it. And I said, I'll show back up. So I was giving a tour to a couple who came by themselves, and they rented the house from 7 to 3. And I was giving a tour to them before they started investigating. And we go down in the cellar, and this cat ball out of nowhere is sitting right on the furnace at eye level. And it hadn't been there in 2 weeks. So,
wow, that's crazy.
I could go on and on. I mean, we capture sounds on the cameras of furniture moving in the master bedroom. Well, the master bedroom right now has carpet, so you wouldn't hear furniture moving. Period. We have a ghost parrot that I've caught on the video sound, squawking and whistling. I've heard the whistling myself, and so have other people, but it doesn't sound like a person. It sounds like a bird, like a parrot. We have furniture move. We have doors open and close on their own. I mean, just the whole footsteps. That's been a big thing lately that I've heard from many of the teams is footsteps. They've heard really dominant footsteps here lately in the attic and things. So just, yeah, it's insane.
It sounds like you've absolutely fell on your feet with having that perfect location to do investigations.
Yeah. And I think it was ripe for the spirits to want to tell their stories and to be recognized, and recognized in a respectful way of carrying on their history, because their history has not been told. The Knights were such a prominent family in town, and to just be forgotten in 1945 when their kind of immediate family died off. And that's when the house was sold and everything they owned in it was auctioned off. And so not really be acknowledged. They were socialites. They were rich. They're used to being part of the community and in the paper. And so not to be acknowledged like that, or your house, your beautiful house that you worked so hard on, because the Knights did a lot of changes to it to make it Greek revival. with the big porch on the side like you see now, with the big columns, and they changed the fireplaces and a lot of stuff in the house and made the house bigger. And so they're really proud of it. And so to have people coming in now appreciating it, I think they like that. I think that's why they've responded so well.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just been incredible.
Yeah.
And also to have a place, I mean, we try to go to places over and over again, because some nights you don't get anything at a location, and then you might go back the next time and it's crazy. It's been very fascinating for me as an investigator and researcher, as far as research, to see the same things. It's also validating because we'll have experiences and I won't even tell the teams about them. And the team will come back and say, "Oh, we just had the same experience." We just had this. So it validates my experiences as well, which is wonderful to have the validation in the paranormal. But that's been a big thing too, with like I said, with the research of just the ongoing teams on Friday and Saturday every night, and see the similarities of what they get without knowing each other, without putting it online, anything, but seeing the similarities. And for me, if that doesn't prove to you that the afterlife exists, you're crazy. There's no coincidences when 5 teams in a row tell you they've talked to the same spirit, through various methods, and they don't know each other. They're not putting this online,
I'm definitely going to have to speak to the team and let's see if we can arrange a road trip. I think it needs to be done.
Yeah, it'd be amazing to have y'all.
Yeah. So, were you able to validate who Jack was at all? Was he a family member from the Knights? Do you know?
He wasn't from the Knights. He's from previous to the Knights, and from what we can tell, he was probably the son of like a farmhand. He's a white kid, and he's a son of a farmhand, probably from the 1820s, 1830s. The Knights bought the house in 1860, so the house was built in 1815. So probably one of the early families, and yeah, probably his his parents lived there because they were farmhands on the property.
Okay, cool. So unfortunately, we are coming towards the end, but apart from making the Knight's house bigger and better and opening it up for historical tours, what's next on the agenda for Eric?
So in 2025, this year, I was the event coordinator for Goblin Con, UFO and Paranormal Expo in Hopkinsville. It was the very first Goblin Con. And I am happy to say that I will be the event coordinator for Goblin Con, 2026. If you've never heard of the Hopkinsville Goblin incident, that's what it comes from, is the Kelly Greenman or Hopkinsville Goblins. Back in 1955, a spaceship landed on a family farm, and these little men, these little things, attacked the family. If you've ever seen the movie Gremlins, the Gremlins were based off of these creatures.
Wow.
Also, Steven Spielberg wrote E.T. based off of the Hopkinsville Goblin incident. So, yeah, they had pointy ears, just like the Gremlins, long spindly legs and arms, big old eyes. So anyway, it's something that's known worldwide, the Hopkinsville Goblin incident, Kelly Greenman. And this year we celebrated the 70th anniversary, and that's why we started the big convention. I got hired to be the event coordinator. So I'm doing it again this year. It was a huge success this past year. For a first year convention, it was a huge success. We had almost 1,000 people attend. We had 50-something vendors, and we had 2 full days of amazing speakers. So Sin was one of our speakers. We had Ken Gerhard, who is the cryptozoologist. If you watch any of the TV shows, he's the one with the black cowboy hat that's been on over 100 TV shows. We had Tim Swartz, who is on Ancient Aliens and a lot of the shows about aliens as a talking head. We had Ron Murphy, who's an amazing cryptozoology guy. David Eller, who's a Bigfoot guy. Just Geraldine Sutton-Stith, who the Kelly Hopkinsville incident happened to her family back in 1955. So just amazing lineup of speakers. So we're hoping to do that again this year and make it even bigger. So I have that's in August, and that's going to take a lot of my time on top of the Knight House being booked every weekend, because we stay there when we have people in the house. We have our own quarters that we stay in with our own bathroom and everything. So we're there all night when teams are in the house. So that's pretty much every weekend. And then I am working on 2 other books right now simultaneously. One is Small Town Haunts and Legends in Kentucky. The other one is called Strange Chapters, Stories from My Haunted Life. So it's kind of an autobiography from the get-go, even before I was born, some of the experiences my family had, and then my first experience when I was 8, like I told you about, and then all the intricate details leading up to us buying the Knight House And then in the future, there will be a book about the Knight House on its own. But it's going to be autobiography. I'm 70 pages in on that. I'm probably 40 pages into the Small Town Haunted Legends in Kentucky. So you got a full plate, and there's no telling what else will come up. We've got some. Well, I know we got some paranormal shows that are wanting to come and film at the Knight House. I know at least of 3. We may have the opportunity to have some major motion pictures filmed at the Knight House in 2026. We have lots of events. We do events all the time, public ghost hunts. In Valentine's Day weekend, we actually have Mark Elliott Fultz is coming up, the psychic medium. Sin will be there. Friday, we're doing a gallery reading with him. We're selling tickets for that so people can come do a gallery reading where he may connect to your loved ones. And then on Saturday, we're doing a public ghost hunt. We're calling the Seance and Soiree Victorian Valentine's Day. So we're going to do a seance, and then we're going to do a ghost hunt, and then we're going to do old-fashioned table tipping with Mark. So that'll be fun. We have a bunch of public ghost hunts coming up. Booze and Barbecue, January 31st. The middle of January 16th and 17th, we have $10 ghost hunt tickets. And there's 4 different ones on there. But all of that is at thenighthouseky.com. And people can go there and check out the tickets and come see us. Or you can rent the house out if you're a team. 7 to midnight, 7 to 3 a.m., or 7 to 9 a.m.
When do you rest?
Right. I sleep about, and I'm completely serious. I'm an insomniac. I have ADD, and ADD is my superpower. It allows me to do 18 things at one time. I sleep about 4 or 5 hours a night. From about 10 until about 3 in the morning, I'll be up wide awake. I'll go ahead and have my coffee. I'll have breakfast. And about 10 o'clock in the morning, I take an hour nap, and I'm good to go until 10 o'clock at night. And that's my pattern every day. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
So just finally, when are you hoping to have your 2 current books published?
So Strange Chapters, the autobiography, is probably going to be the first one out, probably in March or April. Sin is going to be my editor. She's my editor. So once I get it finished and get it to her, it'll take her a little while to edit, and then I will get it out to be published. So I'm shooting for April, 1st of April. Once I know an exact date, we'll do a pre-sale and all that stuff. Small Town Haunted Legends in Kentucky will probably be more towards Halloween next year, probably September, October, spooky season is when I'm shooting for it, because it's much more extensive. It's because I have to do which I've done all the research, but it's done compiling all that history and the hauntings, like I was talking about with the Tennessee book, compiling that all into cohesive stories to put in the book and make sure there's enough meat on the bone and things to write about. The autobiography, I just sit here and write. It's my life and things that have happened to me. So
that's cool. Eric, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I've learned so much about Tennessee and a little bit of Kentucky.
Yeah.
So, like I say, and I will seriously speak to the team to see if they want to go on a road trip, and we may come and visit you in 2026.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. I'd love to have y'all.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, Lee, for having me on the show.
You are most welcome.
It's been a blast.
And again, we can thank Sin because she's got her fingers in so many pies. But for now, like I say, thanks very much, and you have a great rest of the evening, my friend.
You too.
Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.